This is Pamela Smythe from the University of Waterloo. I'm one of the hosts of Beyond the Bulletin, the podcast of internal communications at the university. We bring you news and views from the U Waterloo community. Please spread the word that we're on SoundCloud.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And now the interview from episode 154 of Beyond the Bulletin, originally broadcast on May 19th, 2023. Founded in 1967, Waterloo's Faculty of Mathematics is the only dedicated Faculty of Math in North America. It's consistently recognized as one of the top schools in the world for mathematics and computer science. It spawned more than 150 startups and spin-offs by students, faculty, and alumni. With ChatGPT and AI regularly in the news, we thought it was an ideal time to speak with Clarke, a professor of computer science and associate dean of innovation and entrepreneurship in the Faculty of Mathematics. Charlie, thanks for joining me.
Great to be here.
It feels like every day there's a new take on ChatGPT. It's coming for our jobs. It has implications for academic integrity. Even the stock market, I saw something today. So we're not going to focus on ChatGPT here for our whole conversation, but it is a good way to get into innovation and math's key role in innovation and really future technologies. And I always feel like Waterloo experts help us make sense of what's happening in the world. So what's your take on ChatGPT?
It's a sudden thing, I think, to the public. So to the public, it's like sometime November, December of last year, all of a sudden this thing appeared and you could talk to it and it almost seemed human-like in its discourse with you. But these technologies have been building over 40 years, but really accelerating over the past 10 years and then accelerating some more over the past 5 years and so on. So this is not something that if you worked in the area of artificial intelligence, machine learning, computer science, that came as a complete surprise. You could see these things building, and the underlying technologies have been building at least for 5 years. There's a piece of AI technology called a transformer that's been around since 2016, 2017, something like that. And that's a core element in how these systems work. It's just simply that, not simply, but partially it's being trained on more and more data until now, rather than the interactions, its behavior seemingly not human at all. Now we've reached a point where the interactions seem in some ways less than human because they don't respond to people like a person would necessarily, but on the same thing, almost superhuman in the sense that if you can speak a large number of languages, right? It can, if you say, "Oh, I'd like your response in the form of a limerick," it'll produce it. So it's a really, I think, now hit the world as, okay, what's this going to do? And superficially, if you look at it, you can say, okay, where's my job? But right, if podcasts, it can just generate the podcast for you. Anything that looks really disruptive, I think really it causes excitement and it causes a little bit of fear, I think. And I think we're a good place to come because, in fact, we do have researchers here for whom this didn't come as the same kind of surprise that it might have come to somebody else. People who have been involved in these technologies for a long time, who understand them really well. And one of the things a lot of these people are doing now is really exploring the limitations and the risks of these things. The big benefits are, in fact, maybe not taking over, all aspects of your job, but later you will edit this podcast and maybe some of that can be done. But it will make everything more efficient. That will definitely happen. So that is a benefit. And the risks are things like, if you have something that can pretend to do a good job of pretending to be a person, then, you get these spam calls and things that tell you that the tax department. But imagine that call with a voice that sounds like a human, someone that understands, something that understands how, the tax department might interact with you. If it seems really realistic, you can easily be taken in by artificial intelligence interacting with you. Or even if you have something, for example, that does something as trivial as read your email and update your calendar. There's a kind of security attack called a prompt injection, in which instead of the email being directed to you, it's directed to the AI reading the email. And it tells the AI to do things that you don't want done. So if you just say, oh, I'm just going to have the AI read my email and send responses and update my calendar, if you have a prompt injection attack in the email, it could even have the AI send an email to your bank directing it to do something.
Oh, okay. So that's frightening. That's even more scary than I thought. So how is math, i.e., math at Waterloo, going to help us in this brave new world, I guess we could call it?
We have a lot of people, actively trying to understand how to leverage the benefits and how to guard against the risks. So we have Florian Kirschbaum in security. So people like Florian are actively thinking about how do we guard against these kinds of attacks. Okay. There are people, researchers, Jimmy Lin, Pascal Boupard, who are thinking about how to deploy these kinds of, myself as well, how to deploy these kinds of things in applications where we minimize the risk. I mean, there's this thing they call hallucination, which is basically the models produce responses that sound factually true, very convincingly. And the thing that they're saying is actually not true. How do we keep the conversational part while avoiding being able to sort of have the thing fact check or limit itself to things it really knows? And sometimes it misrepresents or says things that are not true in a way that a human never would. Like, for example, I was asking it about an author that I was reading. It got their name slightly wrong, right? The middle name was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think a human would just say, "Oh, I don't remember," or they would just, not include that fact. But that's the kind of thing where there's seemingly any harm in it. But it's if you then take that and try to replace Wikipedia with the language model, you're now learning things that aren't true. We also have a faculty member here, Maura Grossman, who is a lawyer. She has looked a lot at things like AI ethics and AI and the law. And one of the big issues facing lawyers are that if we can create an image of anything, if we can create anybody's voice saying anything, what does that do to evidence?
Mm-hmm. Waterloo researchers in math are really helping people make sense of what seems like a futuristic technology that's very much in our present.
So I think that's what that is the thing that we've always done. That's a key element, making sense of the technology and taking the technology and making it part of the world has always been what we've done here. And we've done that either directly through research or because we educate so many students at such a high level that those students go on and take these ideas. And we've always done that. Because of the things like ChatGPT, it becomes even more urgent for us to be communicating the limitations, to be exploring the applications, and to be addressing the risks, social risks, technological risks at all levels.
Well, speaking of the future, we've talked a lot on the podcast about Waterloo at 100, the visioning exercise where we imagine the institution we want to be when Waterloo turns 100. Part of it is Global Futures, which are 5 interconnected futures for humanity aligned to our uniquely Waterloo academic and research strengths. So, those global futures are societal futures, health futures, sustainable futures, technological futures, and economic futures. How do you see innovation and entrepreneurship in math tying into these? I mean, some of them seem a bit more obvious, I think. Would you say that math touches all of those things?
Oh, math absolutely touches all of them. I think in ways that surprise people because we don't bring if you talk about societal futures, I think if you look at a faculty like environment or a faculty like arts, it seems really obvious. Okay, what is the application of this? But if I take societal futures, we have multiple faculty members doing things that either look at long-term societal impact or short-term societal impact. What is the impact on society of being able to create, fake images, fake voices, fake text about anything? That is an impact of technology where we're looking at how is that going to change society. But then we have Professor Edith Law as another example, and she works in human-computer interaction. A lot of the work, we have a very active, very prominent human-computer interaction group. Most of the faculty there are doing things that have direct societal impact. So, for example, Edith is doing things that are related with children. I think it's called teachable robots, so that the children learn by teaching the robots to do things.
Well, and ChatGPT certainly has societal implications.
So, absolutely. On the risk side, there is the potential for making people believe things that aren't true. That misinformation is really important. That's something that I work on actually personally, is health misinformation. So what kinds of presentations of information in social media or search help people understand what is the accurate and correct information, and if a tool, a search, social media, ChatGPT, something like that, produces inaccurate information, how can people be misled? If somebody poses a health information question, how do we ensure that the information they're getting is accurate? And if it isn't, what impact does it have on people?
Speaking of health, people may not see the connection between math and health.
And in fact, this is actually a very important area across actually all of the math faculty. In particular, I want to mention we have this really amazing researcher called Anita Layton, who was also our Associate Dean of Research. We had this event, Research Discovery Days, here, where we basically the idea is to showcase some of our fantastic research for external partners to come in to make new research connections between the Faculty of Mathematics and external partners. So what we did is we highlighted several topics, one of them being health, and Anita was our keynote speaker. And I love the way she characterizes her research as mathematics is our microscope. So she has, for example, fully detailed mathematical models of, say, the kidney, which include sex differences and things like that. And if you look at her explanation of the model, as she digs into it, it gets more and more okay. The level of understanding of human physiology that's gone into this model, it's just amazing. This can be used for, and once again, I'm just parroting what she's going to talk about her own research much better than I am. Things like drug exclusion. So if you have a large number of drugs that might treat a certain condition, you can use these models to say, okay, clinical trials are expensive. Here are the best candidates for a clinical trial. When people think of mathematics they did in high school or something, or they did mathematics they did in university, they don't necessarily see, okay, when we build upon these things, we can reach the point where we can have these direct, in this case example, health impacts.
Right.
We also have people doing things like bioinformatics, numerous other things, all of which kind of connect together to provide this mathematical foundation for research. We don't necessarily directly do medical research, but in the case of Anita, she does. But a lot of it is fundamental things that underlie the research that's done elsewhere. And I think that's true of most of these futures.
What about math and sustainability?
I think one of the biggest areas we touch on in sustainability is climate modeling.
Mm.
Climate systems are very, to say complicated is not, a vast, tremendous understatement, right? And modeling a system of that complexity requires new mathematical concepts. And so where do those new mathematical concepts come from? Where do the concepts that that validate mathematical models come from? Where do the statistical methods, where do these come from? They come from the faculty of math, researchers doing mathematics. I think this is the thing about mathematics where the mathematics, computing, AI, these are all very data, these are all very interconnected. We're not the front-facing things, we're the interconnective tissue, we're the nervous system, we're the skeleton, we're the thing that you build other things on top, we're the foundation of how the world works now. Nothing in the world, very little in the world, is not touched by artificial intelligence, data science, mathematics, computer science. Things getting to your Walmart depend on logistics. Things like logistics, marketing, all of this depend on data science, depend on understanding data, right? And this is what we do. We understand data.
Yeah.
The things that the faculty of math do, which includes traditional mathematics, statistics, modeling, data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, computer science, all these things are now very interconnected. They themselves are founded on math, and they are inside everything. We are doing this podcast, right? For us to do this podcast, things that we focus on in the faculty of math, everything from video to networking to the editing tools you're going to use are all have what we do inside them. There's almost nothing, even the things you have no idea, okay, that's got nothing to do with agriculture or sustainability or health. These inside them all have the things we do.
So it sounds like we've already covered technological futures then.
Everything we do here is technological futures, except for some things in pure math where we don't know the thing we're discovering. Okay, it may be a very fundamental, important building block of a technology 40 years down the road, 20 years down the road, 10 years down the road, or it may be never used. It's just a beautiful piece of mathematics.
How will math support the creation of equitable and resilient local and global economies?
From an economic standpoint, one of the biggest things we do, I'll take as an example Professor Rudo Wong. He works in risk management. Risk management has a lot, people think of it, okay, your bank or insurance company. Looking broadly at risk management, there's risks of climate change. There's risks, how does that impact society locally? How is that going to impact society within Canada? Okay, so if we can quantify risks of things that it's not risks of things we know a lot about, it's risks of things that we only know a little bit about. That's important. But other things are just working directly with the community to solve local problems. I think this is the thing that sort of would surprise people. Human-computer interaction, people think of computer science as being about numbers and about machines. But a big part of computer science, especially in 2023, is about how people work with computers. It's how do we put humans and machines together where the humans do the thing that they're good at and the machines do the thing they're good at. Or how do we put them together for the benefit, to maximize the benefit to the person?
Are students in math entrepreneurial largely? And do you find that? I mean, it seems like there's something in the water here at Waterloo. So I'm wondering how much you see that in math.
The goal is not to try to make students entrepreneurial. It's to try to open the door and let them see what it looks like inside. We have a program called Zero Experience, and which we didn't invent. It was actually invented by one of our students, a math student and an engineering student, as a co-op project. And Zero Experience, the purpose of it is to introduce students who may not think of themselves as entrepreneurs to an entrepreneurial way of thinking. This is the time in your life when I think for many people, not everyone, but for many people, this is the time where it's easiest for them to try something on their own, something new. And so we just open that door. And the other thing we're doing is there's a lot of traditional entrepreneurship, the kind of, Silicon Valley startup stuff. But we also try to help students do things that could be more social impact. If you leave the zero experience program, you might go on to velocity, but you might go on to the greenhouse program, which is more social impact. What entrepreneurship means in 2023, I think, has evolved a lot from what it meant 20 years ago. But now it means I'm going to have an impact with my education in a way that nobody else can have an impact, because my education is in the foundations of how the world works.
Well, and people may not realize that there are a lot of Canadian success stories came out of the Faculty of Math, like OpenText, for instance.
OpenText is an excellent example. There are certainly companies that have been around a long time, MapleSoft, OpenText, that came out of the math faculty, but this happens on an ongoing basis. But now I see students. I talk to a lot of students who are very, very early stages of really interesting ideas. I think the unifying thing is that, the confidence that what they're doing is going to be successful, and I think that's what you need to have. And this is happening constantly, all of the time.
How do you nurture that in students?
We try to focus on that first piece, getting the door open, say, think about this stuff, getting the basics ideas in place. Every engineer has to do a capstone design project.
Right.
And math does not have that. And so one of the things I do personally as a professor of computer science, as well as Associate Dean of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, is to try to figure out how we can have a capstone design project in the Faculty of Math. And then what is that going to look like? And for many years, I was the director of the software engineering program here. And that's a joint program between engineering and math. And they have the final year design projects. And so in many ways, they are modeled for what students that have a focus on computer science or a focus on mathematics could do in a design project.
This has been extremely informative. Thank you. I've learned a lot, and I found this really fascinating. Are there any other points that you would like to add before we close?
If I had one key message to send to people, it would be that if you have a picture of mathematics and computer science that is narrow to just the technology part, that that's not what we're all about. We're about that, but we're about how those technology pieces impact people and the real world.
I'm sure this interview will do a lot to help with that understanding. Thank you, Charlie. It was a pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this interview from the Beyond the Bulletin podcast from the University of Waterloo. You'll find our archive of full episodes on the University of Waterloo website. Select interviews are on the university's YouTube channel. Just look for our playlist there. Please join Brandon Swede and me for new episodes, and don't forget to tell your Waterloo connections about us.